What is happening out there, Roto Scouts basketball fans? What's going on, gang? 5 o'clock show today. Got to get right to it because we're pressed for time. Coming up against Lock. Not going to lie, up all night last night, slept in this afternoon a little longer than I intended to, so everything was a little bit behind schedule, getting projections up. Trying to get better with that and get things done earlier in the day. For NBA, though, I really don't feel like it matters. Like for baseball and stuff, I was always trying to get them up on the site, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, so people had some time. Because baseball, football, you can sit there. Football, I arguably should get them up earlier in the week because you can play with your lineups throughout the week and everything. But basketball really, really doesn't matter. You can have a completely different slate if you post your stuff at noon versus around now. So I wasn't that worried about it, but I do like being up and having a little bit better of a handle on things as we dive into breaking it down on our show. But I spent the last couple of hours with the slate, got everything done, all the minutes customized, all the rates checked, all the projections up on the site. So it looks like we've got an interesting slate. Got an 8-gamer going tonight. Both sites leaving out the two West Coast games, so everything's going from the 7 o'clock start through the 8:30 games. And then nothing for the 2 late games. So it'll be a little bit of a sprint slate again today, which always makes it fun and interesting. Let me just see what that was. Nothing crazy. So it's an interesting board. We've got a few key value spots. We've got a few question marks still lingering. A few more known unknowns tonight than last night. So starting there, we've got on the probable list Drew Holiday and Al Horford, both declared available already. Josh Richardson, Trae Young, Alex Caruso available. Zach LaVine, I believe, was also declared available. Patty Williams, Cody Zeller, all probables. Rudy Gobert, Cody Martin, D'Anthony Melton, Clint Capella, DeJounte Murray, Wesley Matthews, Zion Williamson, and Jose Alvarado, all on the questionable list. And then a whole mess of guys out already. Mike Conley, Kristaps Porzingis, Gordon Hayward, PJ Washington, Mark Williams, Zach Collins, Cade Cunningham, Isaiah Stewart. Stewart and PJ Washington both doubtful, but doesn't seem like they're going to go. Landry Shamet, Tyrese Halliburton, Jimmy Butler, Kyle Lowry, Caleb Martin, Robert Covington, Joel Embiid, DeAndre Hunter, Garrison Matthews, Dylan Brooks, Tyree Easing, Torrey Craig, Draymond Green, Chris Paul, Gary Payton II. Draymond reinstated but not available conditioning stuff, which is kind of weird, right? You're a professional NBA player. You sit out for 12 games and all of a sudden you're completely out of shape. You can't play for another 7 days. Like, I know game shape is a thing, but that's just a little bit weird. I don't think it's anything. I don't mean like weird in a something up kind of a way. It's just like, I don't know. I expect better, I guess is what I'm saying. And then let's look at the game environments. The big track meet, 252 points on the board between Washington and Indy. Indy favored by 8 in that one, but we should be drawing a couple of fantasy players in most lineups from that one, I would think. Minnesota, Boston, 9.5 point line in Boston's favor, 224 point total. 8-point line between Sacramento and Charlotte with Sacto favored, 230.5. 238 between San Antonio and Detroit looks a little bit juicy. That one's fairly close too. 3.5 point total between two of the worst teams in the NBA, but with kind of appealing pieces and parts for our DFS purposes on both sides. So that one I think will be interesting and potentially fairly high scoring. 233.5 with a 4.5 point total between OKC and Miami. Miami missing all those different parts I just named. So there should be some value plays there. Philly and Atlanta, 244 point total, a 1-point spread, no Embiid. A lot of pieces and parts in that one. 4-point spread between the Rockets and the Bulls. 216.5 point total. Very low end game in terms of the entire rest of the slate. We go from 216.5 in that game. Immediately spike up 7.5 points to 224 between Minnesota and Boston. And then everything else is 230 or higher. Going all the way up to 252. So that 216.5 game is just low end. Will there be something successful from that? I'm sure. And will there be things that come through the Sims? We'll take a look. But it's just not the most targetable, not the most appealing when compared to the rest of the slate. And then New Orleans and Golden State wrapping it up at 830, 234 point total with New Orleans favored by 2 points. So some very interesting spots, most specifically that Washington Indy game, 252 points on the board is going to be probably pretty crucial. But let's say hi to everybody. Kind of jump right in. Throwbacks is here. Cujo's here. Doing pretty good, Cuj. Like I said, slept in. It was a long late night last night. I dozed off somewhere around like, I don't know, 10:30, 10:45. Dozed off, slept for like an hour, and then I was just up till sunrise, after sunrise. I watched all of Echo, the new Marvel series on Disney. It was pretty good. Not, it wasn't as tied in as I thought it might be in terms of the MCU and things like that. That's for good and bad. And it felt like there was some little thing lacking. I can't quite put my finger on what it was, but there was a lot of good, like, action scenes, like good fight scenes. The Choctaw Indian Nation was involved in producing it, which was cool. They did a lot of authentic looking, traditional Native American stuff, which was interesting. The main character being a Native American. So it was a cool series. It was enjoyable, better than a lot of things they've done lately. And Vincent D'Onofrio back as Kingpin just, kind of rocks. So that was cool. So I did that. That was 5 episodes and a big chunk of my night. But yeah, a little bit tired still. Got the coffee going. Trying to get engaged here. Tizzle Main's here. What's up, Tiz? Handful of other folks hanging out. What's going on, all you guys? The quiet ones, the quiet majority, as they say. So Terry Rozier off the top of the board, looking pretty solid on both sites today. 8,500 on DraftKings, 9,000 on the FanDuel slate, 30+% win rate on both sites. Very, very strong projection for Mr. Rozier here. Let me just jump into the projections board here. Just want to take a look where I've got him, because that is very high. One, two, two. So we've got him a decent amount above his typical output. He is one of the highest owned players on both sites. So he's just looking like good chalk. That is, that's where we're at with the Terry Rozier situation. I know it seems like a big price to pay for Terry Rozier. But last time out, 44 minutes in an overtime game, 54.6 FanDuel points. He's putting up 1.16 on the season, 27% usage rate. Coming in today at a 5.50 points per dollar on DK, 5.01 on FanDuel. There's a lot of upside there in this one. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, completely different type of play, coming through at a 27% win rate on FanDuel for 4,400, shooting guard, small forward eligible, and then even more value, 30% win rate at 3,800 on the DK site. The DK side, 3,800 is a low price point. He's a .70 per minute player. He is one of the streakier players available, but getting a decent chunk of minutes does give him a little bit of upside here. Not one of the guys I trust ultimately, but he doesn't really need to do much at these prices. Last time out, you can definitely get a clunker like this, 18 minutes, 7.9 fantasy points. That's below this .71 that he's put up for the season. But based on price, opportunity, there should be a little bit of upside there. Jalen Smith, Andrew Nembhard coming through from the Indy side of that Indy-Washington game. There's a couple other, Corey Kispert, Miles Turner, Denny Avdia. I'm just looking for guys from that game. Neesmith down here. So let's stop it at, we'll go Jordan Poole and Tyus Jones are right here too. So we'll go in the top 22. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 out of the top 22 guys, it looks like. It's a little different site to site because Jordan Poole, Tyus Jones a lot lower end on FanDuel than they are on DraftKings. But I'm sure if we flip that, some of these other guys would probably land in those spots. Philly providing some high-end value in Tyrese Maxey, Tobias Harris, both hitting the board fairly hard on both sites. 30+% win rates on FanDuel, 25 and 27% respectively on DraftKings. Plenty of opportunity and upside for those two. Melton is still questionable last that I saw. And like I said, no Joel Embiid off the top. So just plenty of upside and opportunity for these guys who are two good players. More third banana role player, and then more, when Embiid's out, will be the prime scorer, the high-end usage guy. But Tobias Harris in this kind of a role for 7,300, 6,900 across at both forward spots on both sites definitely has appeal, definitely has upside. Turner I just really like. I get to Miles Turner a fair amount of the time anyway. He projects out well in the model. 5% win rate on FanDuel. On DraftKings, a 20% win rate, 21% for 6,800. It's just a price-driven thing. 77 on FanDuel versus 68 on DraftKings. The single center on FanDuel might be a little bit of spread positionally through some multi-position guys, so we'll take a look at that. But I like Turner. You get a fair amount of low-end games, but when he goes off, he tends to go off big time. And I think this could be one of those spots for Miles Turner. So I like this opportunity a lot for him. Kispert has been up and down throughout the season. A lot of the Washington guys, I think that's true of. Certainly Jordan Poole is incredibly streaky and is having a pretty god-awful season overall. Kuzma can be streaky and up and down. Denny can be streaky and up and down. Denny right on a 1.0 fantasy point per minute on FanDuel, 1.01 on DraftKings. He's priced just right about for what he is, I think. 67, 64, maybe a little bit cheap because he is coming through with strong win rates, pushing 30% on FanDuel, 20.5 on DraftKings. Bojan, that Detroit backcourt still no Cade. So similar situation. Bojan went out last night, put up 41 in 32.6 minutes. Should come back out and have similar opportunity for minutes and usage and having the ball in his hands. Killian Hayes, same thing. Jalen Duren, same thing. Duren came out last night after we were talking about him a decent amount on the show. I think he put up 20 in the first, the first like 2 times on the court and then sat for a decent amount of time and ended up at 29. It seemed like it was going to be a good Duren night, and then he only put up like his mean projection or maybe even lower. But right back at it today. I think there's plenty of upside against San Antonio. Jump in positionally. Those are just running through some of the top ones. Quiet in the chat today. Only a handful of people hanging out. It was late notice, late show too. Usually we're trying to shoot for 4 o'clock. I know there's a lot more competition for your eyeballs at 5 o'clock, so I appreciate you guys who were here hanging out. But I also didn't let anybody know when the show was going to start because I didn't know. It's tough. Like I wanted to, all right, I sit down here at 2:30 or whatever and start working on this stuff, and I want to be able to say like, all right, put the show at 4, but I didn't know I was going to be able to finish it by 4, and I didn't want to be scrambling. And then 4 became 4:30, and 4:30 became 5, and here we are as it hits 5:13. So Kevin Huerter ended up okay last night. Real slow start for that guy who is a very popular value play, stepping into the starting role. Ended up playing almost 30 minutes, put up 23.5 FanDuel points. Not exactly where we want him. He's a 0.86 per minutes player, 0.87 on the DraftKings slate, but still looks like a pretty good value with expectation of plenty of playing time. Pulling through at a 37% win rate on FanDuel, 27% on DraftKings. As uncomfortable as it is, as much as he's kind of clunky a lot of nights, I think I am going back to the well with Huerter shares, especially on FanDuel. Trey Jones from the San Antonio side of the San Antonio-Detroit game, showing a ton of FanDuel value, 41% win rate over there. Just 17% on DraftKings, but this is a significant number on FanDuel. 5.33, one of the better points per dollar marks. Actually, at the guard spot, that's the best overall FanDuel points per dollar mark. He's only 5,600 over there. 5,800 on DraftKings. Puts him in play, but not as crazy strong. He's a 0.86 per minute player. Giving him right around that for tonight. Let's see where we got him exactly. So yeah, it's been 0.86 this year. He was 0.98 per minute last year. I've got him closer to this year's rate, but kind of in the middle of those two numbers in a game where San Antonio should pick up a couple of possessions. So I like where we're at with Trey Jones. I think he's a potentially interesting little value play from the mid-range on FanDuel. DraftKings as well, but definitely more interesting on FanDuel where he's double the win rate. Maxey is very easy to pay up for. Again, with no Embiid, potentially no Melton. We'll keep an eye on that one. He just improves even more if that's the case. But plenty of upside. One of the higher ceilings on the slate overall, and looks very good just coming through at a fairly standard for him, honestly, mean projection. He's been at or about this. It's maybe 2 points higher than it's been. So you probably could argue to push that even higher. I wouldn't push it higher than where I'm at. He's been 1.16 on the season. I put him at 1.24. They're picking up a handful of possessions in a fairly high-end game against Atlanta here. So I like the spot, and I think other sites are putting their thumb on it even more to press his rate up a little bit. I don't know that I want to go that far. Let me see, though, what the... Double check what that number looks like. For now, we'll just take Joel off. Yeah, so this is kind of what I'm talking about. On the season, 542 minutes with no Embiid. Maxey is a 1.26 FanDuel point per minute player. So I've got him at 1.24 tonight. I could give him a little bit more considering it is pace up beyond that. But I don't like getting too far into that. Once it becomes a combination of getting a player like him, he's not seeing a minutes uptick necessarily from Embiid's absence, just a usage uptick to a degree. But other guys get part of that as well. And then if you're talking about, all right, we want to pile on to his normal rate for that, then we also want to pile on to his normal rate, which comes through the model because this game, is potentially handing them 4 additional possessions. There's a give and take there. You don't want to push it too far, which is where the concern comes in. So I'm comfortable being maybe a little bit lower in terms of where the projection is because he's going to land in plenty of lineups at even this projection. So if I'm wrong by 2 points in terms of the mean, it's not going to have a big impact on lineup building. But if I'm right about the mean, it could have a big impact in terms of you don't want to go out to 52 points here because then that would force him a lot more. And you stand to be more wrong getting aggressive about it than being a little conservative about it, I think is what I'm trying to say. Hopefully that makes some sense. Melton also looking pretty decent there, 28.16 on FanDuel, 13.25, assuming he plays 6,800 on FanDuel, 6,600, both guard spots on both sites. Pretty decent opportunities, a 0.92 per minute player on FanDuel, 0.91 on DraftKings, 17% usage guy. Not the highest end usage in the world, but you figure he takes a little bit of an uptick from there as well. Again, assuming he's out there. So all of Maxey, Melton, Tobias, and then the guy I didn't spot when we were doing the full run was Reed. Well, I'm sure should be showing some value. There he is. So Paul Reed, all right, 19% win rate on the FanDuel slate, just 7.5% on DraftKings. He's 5,700 over there, 5,500, so cheaper against the higher cap on the single center site. 5.53 points per dollar on FanDuel, 5.08 on DraftKings. Just a 7% win rate. I imagine he's owned a little bit more than that. I know we're jumping around, but like I said, I wanted to make it kind of a tight show today and get through it fairly quickly. And I think, oddly, even though it sent me on like 4 tangents already, oddly jumping around is okay for that. All right, he's not as popular as I would have thought on DraftKings. So the popularity is kind of in line with what we're seeing here. It's a little higher than the win rate, but it's there he is. So on DraftKings, which is what I was checking against, the ownership is a little bit projected is higher than this, which isn't necessarily a good situation, but I actually thought it was going to be quite a bit higher, and it's only a negligible amount higher. So you can take Reed around the Fields number today and be perfectly fine, but it doesn't look like he's actually a priority, which is interesting. What is he at? One. I'm giving him plenty. The projection I have on him is arguably a little high, to be honest, and he's still not crashing through the top of it. So I'm good with where we're at on Paul Reed. Definitely looks playable on the FanDuel slate, though. He's still a little bit cheap on FanDuel. Let's jump back to the guards. Reed just popped into my head because I was talking about the Philly guys there, and I realized I hadn't seen him on the front screen. SGA kind of sitting in the middle of the board here on the guard spot. 12% winner on DraftKings at 10.5. 1,000 more expensive point guard only on FanDuel, point guard only on DraftKings as well, but just 4.7% winner. Definitely playable, high-end luxury item, somebody that you can plug into any lineup at any time, and one of the higher ceilings on the slate by far. Plenty of opportunity for him to succeed, but that's a very high price and a pretty low win rate, given how much you're paying for him. Makes him playable, but not a priority on FanDuel. On DraftKings, looks like one of the higher priority stars overall. I'd probably take shares of Tyrese at 89 because I do think while the mean projection is separated by about 7 points, I don't know that the ceiling is all that separated. I don't know that, let's put it this way, I don't know that the ceiling is separated by 1,600 worth of salary anyway. 1.57 points per minute for SGA on the season. On DraftKings, he's been spectacular. Dunk Robinson, Bilal Coulibaly, some interesting mid-range plays. 55, neither one on FanDuel, but on DraftKings. 5,000 shooting guard small forward, 4,600 shooting guard small forward, 11%, 9.6%. Coulibaly coming out of the Washington Indy game on that one. J. Rich, 4.8% on FanDuel, 12.3%. A lot of differentiated guys. There's a lot of single digits up here, so I'm assuming we've got some guys, lurking down here on the FanDuel side that we'll get to. But J. Rich is playable on FanDuel. Looks pretty decent on DraftKings. Not a top priority, but both guard positions, 4,600, a 20-plus point projection, pulling a 12.37% win rate. He mixes in, at least as a mid-range, and it's really 46 is, you're trending toward the lower mid-range in terms of salary there. 0.73 points per minute. He's appropriately priced for who he is, I think. But just a little bit of opportunity creeping through there. Poole, Tyus Jones, again, coming through from that Washington game. Just a very high-end game with all those points on the board. 12.96% winner for Tyus Jones. 12.8 for Jordan Poole. I think I'd rather have Tyus Jones. Point per minute on the nose on DK. 1.01 on FanDuel. 0.90 on FanDuel for Jordan Poole. And 0.94 on DraftKings. So Tyus Jones, the better option across the board. But I would work in some shares of Jordan Poole. He's 200 more expensive, but he does pick up multi-position eligibility on both sites. On DraftKings, he's 100 less expensive with multi-position eligibility. So if I'm going to Poole, I prefer Poole on DraftKings. On FanDuel, just a 1% win rate. So let's find some of the guys who are differentiated. Bogdan looks okay. Not as good on FanDuel, just a 2.6% win rate. But 16% on DraftKings. Only 6,000 over there. Shooting guard and small forward. I like Bogdan. The player I get to a fair amount of the time. I've talked about him a good amount over the first few weeks of the season. First 2 months of the season, whatever it's been. Few weeks. Devin Vassell. Interesting one. 7,300. Pretty decent price for a point per minute on FanDuel. 16% win rate. Just under 5 points per dollar. In that San Antonio-Detroit game, high-ish anyway, 22.6% usage rate. So fairly high-end guard from the San Antonio side in that one. At 7,300, both guard spots on the DraftKings slate. I was expecting a little higher of a win rate, I got to say. 5.1 points per dollar over there. Looks like he would be a good option. And this is fine. A little bit under 10% win rate is perfectly playable. But I actually would have expected, if you'd just given me these couple numbers, I would have actually expected that win rate to be a little bit higher. But very, very playable over there. 1.02 DraftKings points per minute. Looks like a good option. Pat Bev has disappointed me multiple times. I think I missed out on this one even, where he put up 27.3 in 34 minutes. That would have been fine. But there was a really weak game, I guess 2 games back, where I had a bunch of them, and it did not go well. It's 12.4% usage rate. I talk about it a good amount of the time. Even with these value guys, if I can get a 4,400 or comparable guy with a better usage rate than that at the same position where they do similar things in terms of facilitation and everything that they do, I will always trend toward the higher usage guy. That's where you get burnt, is with these low usage guys sometimes. The guys who rely on happenstance, all right, Pat Bev Picked up a few steals. He had a block. He had a couple of rebounds. He picked up 5 assists, and he happened to score 12 points. That's your upside game from Pat Bev. But if he doesn't put the ball in the basket, he doesn't come up with, those 1-2 steals that pad his stats. All of a sudden, you're looking at a really, really thin fantasy score. McConnell was projected out really, really high on when I was looking at one of the competing sites. We'll see if they updated that, actually. I know it's a high-end game. I've got him at 1.33. He's been a 1.29 player per minute in his on the FanDuel scale in his season so far. So I'm already up above his current season rates, which makes sense for this game environment. They're picking up a good amount of possessions. They're one of the more elite offenses in general when they're fully healthy. But we're talking about a guy, I know McConnell has his days, but those are usually like TJ's really cheap, stepping into, typically getting a handful of minutes and stepping into a giant opportunity. I had him at 23 minutes today. I'm giving him a big rate. He was a 1.10 player last year, so way lower end last year. And 1.10 is still very good. I'm not saying it's not, but it's not the 1.29 that he's been so far this year, and it's certainly not the 1.33 that I'm giving him for today. So I just don't like getting too far north, just based on game environment for this player. And it looks like they are still very, very high on him elsewhere. It's one to keep an eye on. I'm not sure. I don't see where they're really pulling it from. But the site I'm talking about is RG. And they've got him 5 points higher than I do, which to me doesn't really make sense. That would be giving him 1.55. Do we really think TJ McConnell is a 1.55 point per minute player tonight? I don't. I don't know that he's a 1.33. So I feel like they're high on him. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I'm low. See if anybody's chiming in. What's up, guys? Just see everybody. Nick Saban retiring. Wow. That's a biggie. Got something in my eye. PG and Cody Martin both out. All right. Appreciate that, says. I think I had him. I know I had PJ not projected because he was doubtful. Did I have Cody in? I think I do have Cody in. That just enhances the Charlotte plays that we've already touched on. Yeah, I've got Cody. I had Cody in at 30. So presumably that kicks to some McGowans again and then some trickle-down minutes, I would expect. I'll update that later on. I don't know that any critical play emerges from the bench there. I think it just kind of enhances the plays that we were already looking at, but I appreciate that note. Jacob, what's going on, buddy? Jacob says, what's up? All right, let's keep on rolling here. I derailed myself there with TJ McConnell for a minute. I really don't know. If you guys have a thought on why they're that high on him, I'd love to hear it. It was here. So let's see. Some differentiated guys on FanDuel. Jaden Ivey, 32.4. Put up 39 and 32.7 minutes last night. 6,400, both guard spots. Looks very good on the FanDuel side. On DraftKings, just looks playable. 5.8% winner. 6,800 is appropriate pricing. Point guard, shooting guard. But getting him 400 less against the higher cap on FanDuel obviously has its advantages. So if you're playing both sites, Jaden Ivey on FanDuel is where you want him. But he's playable in your DraftKings lineups as well. 19% win rate for CJ. Put up 47.4 in 27.5 minutes the other night. Been 1.14 in his fairly, well, not even limited action at this point. 24 games, 32.6 minutes a night. So I can't even call it limited action anymore. 23.2% usage rate. Fairly aggressive player, 7,800 on both sites. Point guard only on DraftKings dips to 4.36% win rate. Given the same price against the lower cap, obviously he's got a little bit less upside over there. But it's interesting. You see, 4.87 points per dollar versus 4.75 points per dollar. But that ultimately doesn't really impact it because this is going up against the higher cap with your points per dollar. Podziemski picking up some action. 5% winner on both sites, basically 4.5%, call it. Playable on both sites. 6,100 shooting guard small forward on FanDuel. Point guard shooting guard on DraftKings for 5,900. Should be some additional minutes sprinkling around in Golden State. Where's Moody? There he is. Moody didn't really come through. Kind of surprised by that. 22 minutes I gave him. 0.88 per minute player on the season. I have his. Where did I land on the rate though? Is that? I might give Moody a little bit of a nudge. Maybe not. Am I high on his minutes? Oh, interesting. Okay. I just spotted that even at this low projection, I'm a little bit higher than some of the competition, but it's based on minutes. I'm giving Moody more minutes than they are across town. Kurt named him the other day as somebody who is definitely going to get more minutes. He was talking about how the crowd was chanting his name and everything. Doesn't necessarily equate to 20 minutes. Maybe it is more like 18. But it's not like it's coming through as a play anyway, so who cares? 5% winner for Julian Champagne. Not a player I'm in love with in terms of this slate or in general. Just a 15% usage guy. 0.81 fantasy points per minute, but tends to have a lot of, if he doesn't play a ton of minutes, he obviously doesn't get there for you. And then even when he does play a ton of minutes, you're not getting a lot of high ceiling type performances. When he initially crept into that starting lineup, he was interesting at a low price a couple of times, but not really showing us much at this point. So I would probably ignore this one. If I get him in a couple of lineups, fine. But I think ownership-wise, exposure-wise, I would probably want to be this or lower, 5% or lower. Ben Mathurin, 25% winner on FanDuel, just 2.3% on DraftKings. Another piece of that Washington Indy game. Bruce Brown, yet another piece of it. 9% winner on FanDuel, just under 2% on DraftKings. Brandon Miller probably takes a little bit of a jump. He's at 31 minutes already, but maybe he picks up a couple scrap minutes just lingering. There's going to be 30 minutes to distribute around Charlotte. So maybe he jumps to 33, somewhere around there, picks up a little bit. It wouldn't, it's nothing that's going to drive him to a 25% win rate by any means, but maybe he gets into the 6-8 range over here, and then similar over here, maybe 5% winner. So it becomes a little bit more playable maybe. Kelly Oubre on FanDuel, 21.6% winner versus a 2% winner on DraftKings. 6,300, both shooting guard and small forward versus 6,200. Yeah, just a salary against cap thing, relative cap on each site. So I don't mind Oubre. Put up 37 in 37 the other night. Been around a point per minute of late. 0.90 on the season. 19% usage. Not a bad option in the middle. Steph, 7% winner. Darren Fox, 3% winner on FanDuel. Both in the twos, but both, again, highly playable, star caliber type guys. Steph at just 8,700. I just can't get used to Steph Curry being at these lowish prices. The model likes it. The Sims like it at 7.5%. Very highly playable. He's been 1.19 per minute. So it's just the new reality of Steph Curry, I guess. But still maintaining a 29.9% usage rate, one of the higher usage guys on the board. Darren Fox at 31% usage. Trey, 30.4%. A lot of premium guards available tonight. So you can mix in, you can thread a lot of these guys, even with lower win rates. You can thread a lot of these guys together with a lot of the values, the mid-range guys, and come up with some good lineups here. Both Bogdanovich is in play. Bojan, much more so on the FanDuel slate, 22.2% versus Bogdan, just playable on FanDuel at 2.6%. But he's got plenty of opportunity in Atlanta right now. And I like the player, like I was saying before, 35.1 in 26 minutes the other night, 1.04 per minute on the average. I like Bogdan, but he's much, much better looking on the DraftKings slate today. Bojan looks good on both sites, 22.2 on FanDuel, 19.9 on DraftKings. Plenty of upside for Bojan in the exact same situation they were in last night, in probably a higher-end game environment against San Antonio here. Both pieces from Washington playable on FanDuel. Denny looks much, much better than Corey Kispert on the FanDuel slate. They look about the same, with Kispert in the lead as a value play at 4,000 on the DraftKings side. Basically a 25% win rate for 4,000 at both forward spots for Corey Kispert. Looks like potentially a key piece of value. Playing 22 minutes a night in 18.4 the other night. He put up just 14.2 FanDuel points, 0.77 on the season, 0.82 DraftKings points per minute on the season. But what I don't mind is when he is out there, 19% usage isn't tragic. That's not one of your 12, 13% usage guys that puts up a low per minute mark. So just need to hit him on the right night. But when you do, I think given the more advanced usage, there's more, his path trends upward more quickly, if that makes sense. Trying to find a good way to explain those differences with those like 20-minute guys. Like, why is he better than a couple other 20-minute guys that are priced similarly? Herter, it's going to be painful again, I'm sure, but a 37% win rate, shooting guard and small forward. We're not over the top with minutes by any means. He played 29 last night in that starting role. Just came back and gave him 26 tonight. It's price driven, 4,800 on FanDuel, 4,700 on DraftKings, 27% winner over there, 37% winner on the blue site. Seems kind of unavoidable in that game against Charlotte. What was the line in that one? 230.5 point total. So not one of the top games on the board, but certainly not a bad spot. DeRozan more playable on the DraftKings slate, pushing a 15% win rate for 7,600 over there. 8,500, just a 3.6% winner on FanDuel. Like him a lot better on DraftKings. Even if you get like this last performance, which he needed almost 44 minutes to put up, a 46. If you get that at 8,500 on FanDuel small forward only, that's not a winning score. It could be a part of a winning lineup, but it doesn't create a winning lineup, right? Like I said the other day about God knows who. He would just be he would be dragged along to success by other more high-end scores. It's perfectly fine. It's perfectly playable, but it's not creating a ton of value there. 4.7 points per dollar at the 39.9 mark. You need more than, what's that? Less than a standard deviation. My standard deviation for him would be around 20%. So he needs a little bit more than that compounded on top of his mean to give you value at that 85. That's where we're just not seeing much success from him on FanDuel. Where at 76 on DraftKings, it doesn't matter nearly as much. That's a lot more value there. 51 for Nesmith on DraftKings, 13.7% winner. 0.86 points per minute, 0.87 points per minute on FanDuel. It was around a point per minute the other night. In 26 minutes, he put up 27.8. Moderate usage, 16%. He's just a 3.2% winner on FanDuel at both forward spots for 5,900. Other options on the board on FanDuel. On DraftKings, again, looks very, very playable. Trey Lyles for 41, power forward only on FanDuel. Looks better on DraftKings, 3,900 power forward and center. Nice flexibility. Little piece of value. 0.85 per minute, low usage guy, but has the big man upside in terms of collecting fantasy points. 0.81 per minute on the FanDuel slate. You could get this out of him very easily. 32 minutes the other night, 19.1 FanDuel points. It's a little bit above the mean projection that we're giving him, but it's certainly not an upside game. But you really only need him to crest into the mid-20s, which he's perfectly capable of on any given night. So I think we're about right on Trey Lyles here. Levine back to essentially regular minutes, not regular scoring the last time out. 35.7 minutes, just put up 24 points. That was off the bench. We'll see what they do tonight. They came out with, it was a weird one. It was yesterday, day before maybe, with they came out, said, all right, Levine and Vooch are going to play increased minutes. We're not going to manage their minutes anymore. And then neither one of them was in the starting lineup. They both played off the bench, but they both did play more minutes. It's just a weird way to manage those two players. But given where he's at right now on FanDuel, Levine doesn't look all that valuable at all. 0.96% winner. 12.4% winner for 6,700. That's just a cheap price for Zach LaVine. Shooting guard, small forward. I know he hasn't been great this season. 0.96 per minute. Just been in and out too much. Hasn't really gotten things going. But we know that overall, Zach LaVine's a better player than that. LaVine last year was 1.02 on the FanDuel scale. So it was only a little bit better, honestly. But 9/100ths of a point better per minute is not insignificant, but it's not actually as significant. I was thinking he was more in the 1.1 range. But again, just a player capable of putting up a very strong fantasy score for 6,700 and just coming through, at a standard projection, coming through pretty well. Kyle Kuzma having a nice season, 1.16 per minute on FanDuel, 1.22 on DraftKings. Looks better over there, yet another guy. 11.5% winner, 7,800 at the power forward only spot. Both forward spots on FanDuel give him a little bit of additional flexibility. Basically an 8.5% win rate. I like him a little better than that, just given that game environment. And given that he's one of their, critical guys, he's got a 30% usage rate. So why not go to the highest usage guy on that team from the highest end overall game environment a little bit more aggressively? I think it makes a ton of sense. And the fact that I can get him between both forward spots helps his upside for me. So Kuzma's one I would look to get to maybe a little bit more. I'm sure he's a little popular. Not backbreakingly so on DK by any means. On FanDuel, not going to give you the numbers, but anyway, take it for what it's worth. These ownership projections are okay. They're fair. They get you most of the way there. Sometimes you'll have an egregiously bad one, but that's true basically anywhere. Yeah, FanDuel just low ownership projection, lower than this win rate, which is exactly what we want to see for that kind of a play. That's what I was talking about yesterday when I was saying you want to get to, you want to marginalize the guys whose ownership is way out ahead of a lower win rate when there's a lot of competitive options. And then when there's a sneaky good play or a potentially sneaky good play that's coming in at fairly low ownership, even if it's close to what that win rate is, that makes a spot where I want to get a little bit more aggressive. So if the field's going to be, call it 3/4 of what this number is essentially, I can push this to, basically double that win rate maybe on Kuzma and have a nice little advantage on a spot that I think is pretty good, even though it doesn't necessarily sim directly that way. Obi, not really playable on on FanDuel, definitely playable at an 11% win rate on DraftKings, 4.3. There's a power forward and a center over there. Okongwu, another guy, value play, 4.8. Power forward and center, giving you a 10.3% win rate. This is if we're talking about guys above 5% on DraftKings, there's 24 of them tonight. Guys above 10%, let's put the 994 into that as well. 9.94% or higher, there's 18 of them at the forward spots on DK tonight. And a lot of multi-position eligible guys there. A lot of flexibility on the board. 544, we got to hit the accelerator here. I'm sure the manual will tell me which is the velocitator and which is the deceleratrix, said Mr. Burns when he was learning how to drive. Chaz is here, 15 minutes behind, so doubt you'll see this for a while. I saw it, Trav. You'll hear this in a little bit. What's the... Power says at Beantown for real, but the wings, though, it's like craps. Chat is real time, so we can see you. Rudy Gobert out. Clint Capella is out? Shit. So that'll enhance that Okongwu play. This is why I hate doing the show at 5. It gets so screwy. Wow, Bismack Biyombo has one bad game and he's getting waived by the Grizzlies. Poor guy. All right, Capella out as of 14 minutes ago. Rudy Gobert out. Kristaps Porzingis. Oh, out Wednesday, expected to play. I saw expected to play. I didn't see the out Wednesday part. I was like, what? Ooh, Nick's optimistic that Mitch Robinson could return later in the season. That's a plus. That would be awesome. All right, so we will get updated for that news, but that's going to make this a better play on both sides. Okongwu will see a little bit of a jump on the FanDuel slate, and he'll definitely spike on the DraftKings side. And then oh, it's Bruno Fernando, isn't it? Let me pull up my minutes board here. Yeah, so I think Okongwu's going to go up 6 to 8 minutes. Bruno Fernando picks up a chunk, and then we'll distribute the rest of it around a little. Fernando costs 36 on FanDuel, 33 on DraftKings. I don't know that he gets enough. At 33, maybe on DraftKings he gets enough. Let me see. Fernando, there he is. Have him that, and then take Capella out of there. Go to, let's call it 32 for now. That leaves me with 5. I don't think I want to take Fernando any higher than that. So I get immediately back to, if I just make Okongwu 32 and I give Bruno 16 or thereabouts, just kind of dashing it off quick, that leaves like 5 minutes to be sprinkled around to some of these other guys. So it'll basically be those two. I don't think anybody else takes a crazy turn. A couple other guys will pick up a minute, 2 minutes. Fernando, though, is the guy that I wanted to look at. He comes in at just bare without tweaking anything. 0.98 per minute. He's been 1.01 in his limited action on the season, 1.13 last year. Puts him in a 15. Let me see. No, he's not Oh, he wasn't projected, so he's not going to be on this board. Fuck. And it won't matter because he won't come through in the Sims anyway. All right, what I want to find then is a comp. So he's what? Center only 3,300 on DraftKings. It's interesting enough that it's worth taking our time here for a sec. Because it's just about how those 3,300s tend to hit the board on DK, right? Like 3,300 power forward center for 12 points here. You're getting just 0.22 from Kenrich Williams. But that would have been with a lower standard deviation than what Fernando will pick up now, given the minutes projection. And he's at, call it 3 points lower than where I'll have Fernando projected. 35, he had only 0.59. Maybe it won't matter, but you get like 43 here, power forward center for Obi. He was coming up at 10.8 at 18. If I drop Bruno Fernando in next to him at 15 for 1,000 less, I think Fernando probably replaces. Oh, there's 3,900. All right. There's one to use. So again, same story. For 600 less, if I can drop Bruno Fernando in next to Trey Lyles here with a 3-point lower projection. I don't know that he doesn't probably fully replace this or Obi, but he probably takes a little bit of Obi, probably takes a little bit, and maybe all three of them fall to like 7% or somewhere around there, 6-7%. That's going to potentially be interesting on DraftKings. I don't think it's as relevant on FanDuel. FanDuel at 36. He does have power forward eligibility over there, but I don't know that the 15-point projection necessarily plays on FanDuel the same way that $3,300 15-point projection would play on DraftKings. Just the quick thinking on that. I'll clean that up. Oh, did they downgrade power? They downgraded DeJounte too? I didn't see that. He is definitely, as you say, a player is rumored to be on the trade block. Trey Jones remains in the starting lineup Wednesday. Was that something that happened earlier that he landed on the that he popped up as questionable and I just missed that it was a downgrade? Yeah, all right. That was mid-afternoon. So with my late start, I missed that had been a downgrade during the day. So maybe that does trend him even more toward not going, which would obviously just enhance everybody else even further, your Bogdans and guys like that. So yeah, definitely keep an eye on that Murray spot as well. Whew, a lot of moving parts on this one. All right. So we worked our way down through a lot of those guys. Let's look for some differentiated plays. Let's look at where some of the stars are coming in. Karl-Anthony Towns, 15% winner on FanDuel, half that on DraftKings, but playable on both sides, power forward and center on both sides for a fair 7,900. Obviously, that just plays a little bit better against the higher cap on FanDuel. My left contact lens is spinning around and around in my eye right now too. It might just pop out of my eye at any given moment. Keep an eye on that. Bonus. Bam Adebayo, 12.9% winner, center only on the FanDuel slate. Different play. Oh, we're back to... I was like, why am I getting centers? I forgot I had sorted it that way. We'll talk about Bam in just a minute. So we had done Kuzma. Sadiq Bey, 18.3% on FanDuel, 10% on DraftKings, just 5,500 over there, 5,800. 0.78 points per minute, 0.80 on DraftKings, but especially when potentially given a little bit more opportunity to get things done, is a player who's capable of coming out and beating these rates. Put up a 30 in 38 minutes the other night. That's probably right around that production. Jalen Johnson, another piece in Atlanta. Definitely upside there, 7,400, both forward spots. He's been very good this year. 1.06 FanDuel points, 1.06 on DraftKings as well. 7,000 over there. Power forward only, a little bit more flex on FanDuel, a little bit cheaper on DraftKings. 9.9% winner versus 14% winner on FanDuel. Miles Bridges, cat I talked about. Miles Bridges at small forward. Plenty of opportunity in Charlotte, obviously. Not going to pick up any more. I'm not going to put him at 40 minutes. That would be absurd. But definitely, 23% usage rate. Could see a little bit of couple additional looks today. But just was looking good coming in anyway. 1.0 on the nose on FanDuel, 1.02 on DraftKings, 9.1% winner over on DraftKings. He's got center eligibility over there, which is unique. Power forward and center at 8,200. On FanDuel, still just a small forward for 79, but looks very good on FanDuel. Looks very playable on DraftKings. Keldon, similarly, more playable on FanDuel, but also playable on DraftKings for 7,000, both forward spots. 68 lower against the higher cap, both forward spots. A lot of opportunity on FanDuel at 18% win rate. Sohan, 12%. Wiggins, 21% on FanDuel. Those guys are in the fours on the DraftKings slate for 57 and 49 versus 59 and 49. Kuminga, playable across sites. 7.5% on FanDuel, 4.5% on DraftKings. Slow-mo, Cody Martin. Cody Martin's out. We learned that throughout the show, so ignore Cody. Slow-mo, playable on both. A little bit more value on FanDuel. Both forward spots, 4,700. It's 0.86 per minute player. You get games like this out of him all the time. It's just the nature of who he is. Mather and I talked about a couple minutes ago when we were doing the guards, but again, 25% winner on FanDuel versus 2.3% on DraftKings. Much, much better looking on the FanDuel slate today. I like guys like that too from the mid-range where it's not like a crazy value play. So even if sites do spend time talking FanDuel, that doesn't necessarily hit the radar like if it was a $4,200 guy showing similar upside and win potential. So with the industry's tending to focus on DraftKings more. When guys pop like this on FanDuel from just the mid range, I think that makes them interesting because they get overlooked a lot of the time. So I'll keep an eye on Ben Mathurin. I'm not going to get crazy about it. We're talking about a 0.91 per minute player, but he did come out the other day, put up 39 and 29. That's enough at this kind of a price. Tatum at 10-3. Won't be crazy popular, I don't think, at a 3.4% win rate on FanDuel, 2.2% win rate on DraftKings. Easily playable on both sites. We know there's monster upside there. 1.27 on the year on FanDuel, 1.33 on DraftKings. Wemby, 1.57 on FanDuel, 1.52 on DraftKings. Kid is unreal. And some of the things he does on the court just blow you away when you're talking about a 7 foot, what is he? 7'4", conservatively. Just to see a guy of that size and shape, like back in the day, guys like that it would be like, wow, if he could ever figure out how to dribble the ball without looking like he's going in 6 different directions. You'd see these clumsy, just awkwardly put together guys. We're talking about, version like 5.0 of this body shape now. Like, human genetics has figured out the way to construct that body correctly now, where it is athletic and where it is ridiculously skilled. He dribbles like a guard. He shoots from the outside like a guard, and he's got that side. He is outrageously good. So I'll take Wemby and I'll put him right on that star level. He's a luxury item at this point. 10,000 on FanDuel, probably correct. Power forward and center, 2.4% winner. You're just paying up to get the potential ceiling. 8,900 on DraftKings. Very differentiated price points, but still doesn't really do anything for the win rate. Power forward and center, just a 2% win rate. Luxury item, but one that I think you can get to anytime you want. Zion, it's weird. I don't consider Zion necessarily on that level. He's not priced like it. But 8,000, Wemby is putting up the numbers that people wanted from Zion, but Zion didn't want that for himself, I don't think. 1.23 is not bad. 8,000, that's arguably a decent price for a 1.23 player, but just for such a high-end guy, he's just so unreliable. I don't love it. I really don't. You get a lot of right around a fantasy point per minute and a lot of low minutes performances from Zion. Should be better than he is. Playable on both sides, don't get me wrong. More so on FanDuel at 7.3 than 1.2 on DraftKings, but not my favorite option off the board. Keegan Murray, 16% on FanDuel, a lot less than that on DraftKings. Jaden McDaniels, 15% on FanDuel, a lot less than that on DraftKings. 4,900 on the FanDuel slate, put up 28 in 35 minutes the other night, or last night. Oh, if you were here yesterday, by the way, that McLaughlin thing, it was exactly what I thought. And I put it in Discord and I put it on the website. I had just accidentally given him like 5 times the standard deviation he should have had. So that's why he came through in some of those lineups in the sim yesterday. Not McDaniels, McLaughlin. It's just the Mick reminded me of it. Anybody else looking interesting? Did I say Kuminga's name? Kuminga's kind of interesting. Wiggy, kind of interesting. A lot of pieces from Golden State right now. When everybody comes back, it'll be different. But right now, there are definitely different ways to go. And the thing about it is that I don't totally love, but it makes it kind of compelling for DFS if you get a big spread of everybody. What I don't love is picking like one guy for one lineup from the group of Wiggins, Kuminga, Podziemski, Mo Moody, guys like that. It's like you're probably not getting multiple guys from that group succeeding on any given night. But if you nail the right guy, which is why I do think there's a justification for getting a fair share of Warriors across a full portfolio of lineups. If you nail the right guy, I think you get there. Let's jump to center. And then let's wrap this thing up because we are at 6 o'clock already. Jeez. Jalen Smith, Miles Turner, top of the board on the DraftKings slate. Jalen from the $5,000 price point, $5,400 on FanDuel, not showing nearly as much value. 28% winner to lead the way at the center spot. He's power forward and center eligible on DraftKings. I like that option. 54, I'll have some of them on FanDuel, but I think I'd rather just go and spend a little bit more to get to Miles Turner on the FanDuel slate, considering that he projects out a little bit better, or he projects a lot better. His win rate is a little bit better. 4.23 for Jalen Smith, 5.19 for Miles Turner on FanDuel. And like I said before, I just like getting to the high ceiling opportunities that Miles Turner provides. In a price basis, Smith also has a fairly high upside. He's a 1.13 per minute player. So I will make sure that I get some of him. But I think I got more Turner on FanDuel. And then the other way around on DraftKings. But both very, very playable. I think you can get them both in a lineup on DK, given where the pricing is. Jalen Duren at 71, 14% winner on DraftKings, 12% on FanDuel. Looks very good again for a $7,400 player. He's been 1.11 per minute this year. Good opportunity there. Lyles, we touched on when we were talking about forwards. He has center eligibility on DraftKings. That is a price-driven play. Capella's out, so we'll ignore that. Obviously, Okongwu is going to be up like in this territory when we resim. So you'll see, well, you won't see, but you would see. Sabonis, very playable any given slate, 10-2, pulling nearly a 19% win rate. So it looks like one of the more critical high-end players on FanDuel. That said, you've also got Bridges at 18.8, 7,900. You've got Bam at 9,000, pulling at 12.9%. So it does look like there's some availability of spend on the FanDuel slate for sure. For 10,000 on DK, Sabonis pulling an 11% win rate. Is a 1.4 per minute player. Put up the monster last night. Obviously, I had a ton of them. Liked that spot a lot yesterday. I think we go right back to it. I think he's probably going to be popular, but plenty of justification for him going up against that Charlotte team. Paul Reed, we talked about off the top, looking a lot better on FanDuel for the 5,500, even though it's a single center site. 19% winner over there, just 7%, and owned around this territory on DraftKings for 5,700. So just not showing the same upside from site to site, but clearly has some good points per minute potential. 1.03 per minute on the season. Karl Anthony Towns I touched on during the forward spot, but again looks pretty good. More so on FanDuel at 14.8, power forward and center eligible, but a 7% win rate at both power forward and center on the DraftKings slate, pretty good as well. Nick Richards nearly a 10% winner on FanDuel at the center spot for Charlotte for 63. Not bad. 59 on DraftKings, 6.7%. More just playable, I think, for Nick Richards. I don't want to get over the top on Richards. I've been at that spot a couple times this season. It hasn't really worked out. It's not necessarily a biased thing. We're talking about a 0.96 per minute player, a 12.8% usage rate. So there's good reason to justify maybe showing him a little bit less love than this might dictate. I don't know where his ownership is at, though. Yeah, his ownership is quite a bit higher. He's not double this win rate, but approaching double that win rate in the ownership projection. I have no issue being a little bit below the field in terms of exposure on Nick Richards. If I'm half the field on Nick Richards shares on FanDuel tonight, I'm fine with it. DraftKings, same story. You can probably be around the field on DraftKings. I'm not sure what his ownership is over there. Jackson Davis, high-end option from the Golden State side on FanDuel. Not so much on DraftKings. Playable on DraftKings for sure. 5,400 at center, a 3% win rate, but still pulling a pretty good number on FanDuel at 5,900. Power forward and center. The flexibility probably has a lot to do with that. Last time out, 27 minutes, 41.2 FanDuel points. I'll take that tonight. Danny Gafford, I'm surprised, given the fairly high-end game environment there, or the incredibly high-end game environment. I'm surprised because Gafford comes up a good amount of the time for me. He's a 1.16 per minute player this year, 1.08 on DraftKings, pulling just a 1.5% win rate on DK and just a 0.12 on FanDuel. I think just getting boxed out by a lot of these better guys. I think he's more playable than this win rate might suggest. Tough spot though too, given the opposition. I'm fine if I don't have it. Let's put it that way. Holmgren, 2.5% winner on FanDuel, 0.63 on DraftKings. That's another guy, 1.29 per minute on the season on FanDuel, 1.25 on DraftKings. I don't mind getting to that option. I think there's a pretty clearly high ceiling there for Chet Holmgren, 49.3 in 31 minutes the other night. I think he's still appropriately priced for, given like he's priced appropriate to his mean, and I think he's got a bigger ceiling than your typical $8,600 player. Gobert's out, so we scratch him off the board there. We get 1.7% for Joval. Not really looking like a crazy good option, but only 7,000. Another guy I've mentioned a number of different spots throughout the season, for Joval, you do get the opportunity to book some fairly high-end games for a fairly cheap price. So I don't mind if if he's very low owned in the 1-2% range and I end up 5-6% of Joval, I'm perfectly fine with that. And then with Gobert being out, the guy that we didn't talk about is Naz Reid. Probably going to see more upside there. I had him, where did I have him? 22. Take him to probably 26. What else are we dealing with there? Yeah, I think Naz is going to take a bit of a jump. Let's see if I give him that. He's 57, 52. 57 on FanDuel, center and power forward. 52 on DraftKings, center and power forward. Giving him a decent enough bump that'll probably be relevant. And we all know that, where is he? There he is. We all know that when thrust into minutes and opportunity, you do get those days where Naz just completely shines. On the season, 1.0 on the nose on FanDuel, 1.03 on DraftKings. Where it simmed out before, in 22 minutes, he was not that relevant. If I give him an additional 4 or 5 minutes, he jumps to 25, 26 points at these prices. It's still not great. It's not like he's priced at 44 on FanDuel and 38 on DraftKings. He's priced appropriate to Naz getting minutes in the mid-20s. It's just there is more ceiling there now, given an uptick in opportunity. I think that would be the critical piece that changes on that side. I don't know that we get another big chunk upgrade. I'd probably throw another minute or two in Cat's direction as well. I had him at 34, so there's a little bit of room there. So maybe Towns does increase over this, where he already looked decent. If I give him 36 there, he would probably hit about 40. So 1.16 on the season, so call it 40. Probably pushes him up toward 20% on FanDuel, I would guess, and above 10 on DraftKings. So Cat becomes a little bit more interesting than he was looking in the sim as well. With that, let's jump to the sims because I do got to get this stuff updated. It's 6:08. Got to get updated, and then I got to get my own lineups built. So let me do this really quickly. Nice guesstimate on time as far as the show being quick. George Mirasan. I remember George Mirasan. Trey. What's up, Trey? Manute Bol. Sean Bradley. Oh, you're naming guys that were shaped, those big, awkward guys. Yeah, Bradley. Manute Bol is the most, I think, relevant comp. Manute and Wemby are shaped pretty similarly. And if you ever saw Manute Bol run, as good as he was at blocking shots, he looked like Phoebe. Remember Phoebe from Friends running? That's what a lot of those guys look like when they run. Is 4 Spurs too many? That's aggressive, buddy. Let's see. This is the DK sim. Get this real quick. There's a Spur for you off the top. I don't know if the top's got 2 Washington. I don't see any 4 Spurs here. There's a 2 Spurs. The 1 Spur. The 1 Spur. There's it's Sacco. 2. 1, 2. Looks like we're maxing out in the 1 to 2 range in terms of these top successes. Good amount of Terry Rozier coming through off the top. Trey Jones, Tyus Jones. A lot of Nickeil Alexander-Walker as a value play. Good amount of Bogdan, which I expect will take another little uptick if we get no Murray. A little bit of Bojan as well, like we expected. Karl Anthony Towns, and I expect we would get more Karl Anthony Towns if we ran this with reran this with current data. We would probably also see some Nas. Corey Kispert, Kyle Kuzma, Denny Avdia, a lot of guys. Jalen Smith, Miles Turner, a lot of guys from that Washington Indy game hitting this board. Balak Coulibaly, Nemhard, Kuzma again, Jalen Johnson. Oh, no, that's Atlanta. Aaron Holiday. No, he's not on Indy anymore either, is he? I shouldn't try and do this with the names. Let's see. What else do we have? Little DDR hitting the board on DraftKings. He was looking a lot better on the DraftKings side, if I'm remembering correctly. Levine, Alex Caruso. Some pieces there. From, that was the game that I was saying didn't look great, right? Yeah, that's that low end game. Be wary with those Chicago plays. Ooh, this looks awful. Those, I don't know how many Chicago guys, even though they're coming through, like it's typically, I think it looks like it's typically one, which is good. Caruso, Levine, DeRozan, although this one's got Levine and DeRozan in it. I don't know that I love more than one Chicago guy, just given that low game total in that game comparative to every other game on the slate. But they are coming up as individuals, at least, a fair amount of the time. So let's see. We get Spendy at point guard for the most part. You do have the J. Rich lineup there. Nemhard, Tyus and Trey, Killian Hayes are from more the mid-range. But I think there's plenty of money to spend at point guard. It looks like shooting guard is definitely a value place on DraftKings. Between the Kevin Huerters, the Nickeil Alexander-Walkers, the Koulibalys, the Podzemkis. Devin Vassal's probably the highest priced guy in this upper group here, and then Bogdan. So it looks like a little bit of value at shooting guard. Small forward, looks like we're getting mid. A lot of Denny Avdia, some DeMar DeRozans. You also get a little bit of Nickeil Alexander-Walker, but you got Bojan in there. So let's call small forward more of a mid position today. Power forward looking like you could go either way, but looks like you definitely want a piece of Washington in the power forward spot or in your forward spot between all the, look at how many Denny, Kuzma, Kispert, Kuzma, Denny, Kuzma, Avdia, Kispert. There's a lot of Washington guys coming through that main forward, power forward spot. And then some Cat will be dropping into that, and Nas as well. And Okongwu as well, taking up some of the center / util spots and pushing Cat over to power forward. It's going to be a different looking slate than what we're looking at. Let's put it that way. A lot of Miles Turner popping up for you on DK, which I like a lot at the center spot. Looks like you get a decent spend at center as well between Miles Turner, Bam, Clint Capella, who's out now, we know. Reed, I didn't necessarily love, but that definitely did look better on the DraftKings board. Bridges, Şengün, Turner again. So decent spend at center. Coming back to, depends on what you do, I would say, at some of these other spots, whether you have money or save at the guard only. Looks like whatever you didn't do at the power forward, you do at the forward only. But I think, again, you want to have a piece of Washington, Indy in one of your forward spots here, it looks like. And then util looks relatively spendy. Some SGA, DeRozan, Maxey, Cat, DeRozan, Tobias, Freddie VV. I think these lineups trend toward the more balanced nature, though, overall. Pretty decent rates there. Top overall projected lineup. 263 with 2 pieces of Indy, 2 pieces of Washington. I like that. Top overall projected lineup, not necessarily the most successful. This one checked in with an average cash winnings of $76. The top lineup checked in with an average cash winnings of 223. So that's important to keep in mind. You know, top projected doesn't equate necessarily to top results, but that top projected was Tyus Jones, Andrew Nemhard, Kevin Huerter, Denny Avdia, Miles Turner, Trey Jones, Bojan, and Terry Rozier. That is the most balanced lineup I've ever seen. There's not a star in that, but there's not a bad player in that either. That's interesting. Very, very balanced lineup on DK in terms of just the projection. But you saw once we started sorting the win rates, the ROIs, that's where the mix comes in, and that's where you do get the more expensive players replacing some of those balanced guys, the more expensive the lower end, and that's where you create that upward curve. This is going to be rushed at the end. Not this, but my lineup building process. Double Jones in the top FanDuel lineup. Double Jones, Kevin Huerter, Jalen Green, Jason Tatum, Kyle Anderson, Trace Jackson, Davis, Jalen Johnson, Miles Turner. That is also, well, no, that's trends toward balanced, I guess. But you do have Tatum in there at a high price as a star. I like seeing Miles Turner in those top two lineups on FanDuel. That's kind of a weird result, too. We got a handful of Paul Reeds coming through, even though he wasn't looking great on FanDuel. He was looking very playable. Or was it did I have that the other way around? Am I thinking of that backward? Was he better on FanDuel? Let me check. I'm sorry. He was better on FanDuel. Not as good on DraftKings. 19% win rate on FanDuel. So that does make sense. I think we're spendy, mid-range to spendy at both point guard spots. Both Joneses, Jones Melton, Jones Ivy, Jones Melton, SGA Steph is interesting. Tyrese CJ is interesting. Some good combinations. Tyrese, Terry Rozier. Looks like we're saving a little bit more at the shooting guard spot. Huerter coming up as a good value play on one or the other of the shooting guard spots. Do get to some Vassell, some CJ, some Tyler Hero, who I don't think we touched on really. So we're sorted to center. Hero was we skipped over 14.9% win rate on FanDuel, 15% win rate on DraftKings. I didn't see him at the top of the board on the DraftKings slate when we were looking at those lineups, but definitely hitting these top lineups on the FanDuel slate. And remember, these are top 20-ish. If you scroll down, you get more of. I'm sure Tyler Hero would have been there if I had scrolled down another 5 lineups on DraftKings. Yeah, Spendy looks more like mid up on the point guard spot, mid down on the shooting guard spot. Tatum being there with Kyle Anderson, but then you get Avdia Akez, Bojan Bridges, DeRozan Richardson, Bridges Bay. So it looks like 1 and 1. One relatively spendy, one relatively mid to value-ish guy at the small forward spot. Similar at power forward, although you do have some Cat, Jason Tatum combinations. Zion and Denny. A lot of Paul Reed. Miles Turner, Paul Reed coming through at the center spot. Little Jackson Davis there. Looks like we're getting a lot of value at center, though. So I think we want to be saving money at center on FanDuel today. Which tracks we had by win rate. We had Sabonis at the second spot. Reed was the top at 19. Or Jackson Davis, at 20.6. But he has power forward eligibility as well. Reed, the top center only guy at 19. Sabonis at 18.9, center and power forward. Cat. Bam is the outlier that I don't see a ton of here. There's one. There's a few. There's more down here. So it looks like Bam not getting all the way to the top of the board on the average. This is a 12.9% winner for 9,000. Then you get back to Duran at 12, Nick Richards at 9.9, Larry Nance even at 5%. I don't know if we get any Larry Nance, but he's got power forward and center. And then Turner just popping up again. Just one of those guys, even with a 5% win rate, when he hits, those ceilings are high. So Turner can get you there. But I like Turner, Reed, Şengün, Jackson Davis, and Bam as just like a center rotation there. And then again, we will obviously get a bunch of Okongwu. That is it, guys. I'm going to punch out 6:20. I got to get stuff updated. 10 minutes to get things updated for 6:30 when everything will change again. I'll re-update that, and I'll have 10 minutes to build my lineups. Yeah, it is. This is in our top 150 here, which is what these results are against, right? So all the results that we see there are in the top 150 lineups. So we've got or excuse me, the win rates in the top ones, the ROI is for the full 50,000 sims of 26,455 lineups each. But then the ownership here is populated for this top 150 lineups that we're looking at. So Trey Jones, this is FanDuel. I'm not going to go back to DK now, but ask me again tomorrow. I do pull this board up from time to time. Trey, the most highly owned FanDuel player in the top 150. Paul Reed, Kevin Huerter, Jaden Ivey, Tyrese, Tobias, Bojan, Devin Vassell, and on they go. So it does look fairly balanced on the FanDuel site as well. Not a lot of crazy stars at more than 20% ownership in that top 150. But then again, with a lot of emergent value over the last hour and change, it's probably going to be a little bit more starsy scrubsy when it comes down to it. With that, guys, good luck out there tonight. We'll be back tomorrow. Somebody go win something, huh? I'll see you later.